If you are engaged in the energy sector through work or studies, perhaps you are an oil and gas professional or a clean energy enthusiast, and hydrogen as an energy source rings your bells. And moreover, if LinkedIn is a social media platform that you peruse often for acquiring insights and information, as well as networking, then you might have run across with Clemens Behrend's posts related to geologic hydrogen. Clemens is a fervent advocate of geologic hydrogen, and over time he has acquired a wealth of information from prominent sources in this up and coming energy niche. Clemens is Chief Revenue Officer with Delphi Data Labs, a clean tech market intelligence consultancy provider. In his role, initially his focus was green hydrogen, but it didn't take long for him to shift his interest towards geologic hydrogen, a subject and sector that he is passionate about, as he firmly believes in its tremendous potential. Clemens is also a strategist as he is building an assembly of tools tailored to grow the interest towards geologic hydrogen, and with the ultimate focus of growing investments and market acceleration by providing high quality insights on industry analysis, benchmarking, and global market trends. In this occasion, and for this podcast episode, Clemens will discuss what he calls Geologic Hydrogen Accelerator, a set of tools aimed to accelerate knowledge, network, and investments in the geologic hydrogen market. Now, without further introduction, let's welcome Clemens Behrend. Before starting with questions, Clemens, in the last few months, you have become one of the most prominent voices in geologic hydrogen, and your passion is unique as it goes beyond discussing the technical and geologic aspects of geologic hydrogen, but you do it in a holistic manner, and you put together very comprehensive reports and host online events in LinkedIn. Now, those efforts are really helping on steering interest in this niche source of energy. Because of that, it is really my pleasure to have you here, as I am also passionate about geologic hydrogen. With the questions, Clemens, what is your background and how did you transition from focusing your attention from green hydrogen to geologic hydrogen?
That's a fantastic question. Maybe let's start how I what's my background in general. So I'm an economist. I started in finance, worked like in the finance industry for almost 5 to 6 years. So I have like a background, like especially in Web3 or blockchain. So as we all know, Bitcoin uses like a lot of energy. There's like also the type of energy Bitcoin uses, if it's sustainable or not sustainable. That's always like a huge discussion. Also, what your audience should probably know about me, that I'm from Germany, and the nuclear phase out or the energy transition in Germany is like a very heavily discussed topic over here. And sometimes when you then want to use renewable energies like solar and wind or even hydrogen, sometimes you produce more energy, sometimes less. So it's always the question what you do when you have like excess energy. So when you produce too much, so do you produce then hydrogen or do you use it for mining Bitcoin? But would be also a possibility? Do you export it to other countries or like what's the plan? So these questions were on my mind before I moved to the energy sector after I got like a quite solid background in economy and finance. So now the question how I then moved from green hydrogen to geologic hydrogen. So this was mainly thanks to my colleagues, Lukas and Miro, who I worked with at Delphi Data Labs. After I learned like all the basics about green hydrogen, thanks to our digital twin, like our main product, the Power2X green hydrogen dashboard, was able like to learn everything about electrolyzers, who are like the key players and everything. And I think then to the moment until Bill Gates started to invest heavily in Coloma, what we will talk later about in this episode, we also heard about geologic hydrogen. So geologic hydrogen, when you compare to green hydrogen, you can actually like mine it or get it directly out of the floor. There are not many projects worldwide. There's a lot of criticism. But once I also start posting about geologic hydrogen, after I talked about green hydrogen for a very long time, I realized like there are not that many companies, not that many people. So it was like really great. I would not say easy, but it was at least easier compared to like green hydrogen to connect with the people, with the companies in the industry. And then I just had like a few calls with people in geologic hydrogen. They always recommend me another person to talk to, and then I realized, okay, it's quite doable in getting like a good overview and also connections within this industry, and also like the tips or like the lessons learned from this experience I also want to share with your audience today.
Great, great. Thank you. Now, the subject today is about your set of tools, Geologic Hydrogen Accelerator. And for those who are not familiar with geologic hydrogen, and now they are feeling the hype that it is being generated in recent times, yes, in recent months. Clemens, could you explain us how people can learn about geologic hydrogen, how this Geologic Hydrogen Accelerator works, and how beginners can really understand geologic hydrogen, and what are the sources that you recommend?
Yeah, so first of all, the resource that I of course recommend is like the report that Miro, Lucas, and me put together. So like in this report, it's quite easy for people to get like a good overview within like 1 or 2 hours of reading. It's like a 60-page document, but of course, like reading stuff for some people, it's like fun, they enjoy it, but they're of course on social media, the bigger audience is like in actually watching the things and like actually learning actionable insights. So therefore, currently more like as a side project, I'm setting up the Geologic Hydrogen Accelerator. At least it's like how I call like a small series of podcasts or a video course. So in this small video course, where we already published like the 2 first lessons that you can find in my profile on LinkedIn, we discuss like certain things, like of course, like how you can accelerate your knowledge, so learn like the basics. So for instance, when somebody works like in oil and gas, is worried about the future, then hear something about geologic hydrogen, maybe they want to switch career or see this coming, or see that the company is shifting in strategy, maybe many years, maybe not now. Of course, I give like also a few tips about networking, since I receive like all the time the same type of questions. So very often, it's like geoscientists are asking if I can connect them to like investors, or people from the research community just looking for other people who to collaborate with. And of course, the question that I get the most frequent is about how people can invest in geologic hydrogen. Since I mentioned Coloma in the beginning, where Bill Gates is invested, this is still like a private company. For you as a retail investor, what we will also talk later about in detail, it's not possible to invest. So of course, we also then show like in this course and talk to some experts how people can invest in the industry or get at least exposure. Of course, everything what we mention, all the stocks that we tell also later in this episode today, no financial advice. So if you do like any investments, check your local laws, contact a financial advisor, and of course, everything is on your own risk. So to summarize it, the outcome of the course should be the people who are like in oil and gas can switch industries, or people who want to invest in geologic or natural hydrogen, that they can say like, okay, I do my investment and I have like the confidence that I did my research about like how the decisions should be done, and maybe in what part of the hydrogen value chain of geologic hydrogen I should invest to. Also, what are good resources? Of course, everyone feel free to check out my LinkedIn. Just go through previous posts. I think we almost got all geologic hydrogen studies covered, which are public. So whenever there's like a new study, I'll share like a quick summary. Maybe there are like a few which I have not covered, but I think if you read through the posts from the last 3 months, you should have like some solid basic knowledge.
Clemens, LinkedIn is your preferred platform for this kind of interaction, right? And why you chose LinkedIn?
Yeah, so why did I choose LinkedIn? Yes, LinkedIn is definitely the only platform that I use. I say like in a few minutes, like the other platform, if I'm going next after LinkedIn, but what is the thing that I like about LinkedIn, maybe compared to Twitter, what I'm also using, but not that heavily, is first of all the people have like, or at least I assume it, have their real names. So everything's a little bit more professional and people are really interested in having like arguments or discussions and not just like insulting each other, like how it's very typical on the internet. I mean, like even on LinkedIn, you have sometimes like heavily discussions or people sticking very strong to their opinion, especially when it comes to a topic like geologic hydrogen or like hydrogen in general. So what I noticed there, from maybe like from a PR perspective as a new joiner, the sentiment is very often quite negative. Of course, there are like critics to hydrogen in general, but I think their LinkedIn is at least the least negative place when I compare to like other social media platforms. Also, why did I start using LinkedIn at all? Like I think like 2 years ago or like 1.5 years ago, I started posting on it like on a regular basis. But I just discovered in my last job that like every CEO, no matter how big the company is, like they all read their LinkedIn direct messages, and it gives you also power. So even if you're like a customer of a company or if you want to grow an audience, I think there are always like good ways how you can utilize LinkedIn. And also what I want to add is now like a few tips how you can utilize LinkedIn if you want to grow like an audience, or at least how I grew my audience. I think like 8 months ago, I was like at 3,000 followers, mainly related to like finance or like customer service. So like customer service was also like back then my biggest audience. And now in the last 7 months, I grew to 10,000 followers and like 7,000 followers now in the energy sector and mainly in oil and gas. So how did I do that?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. In fact, I use LinkedIn almost as much as you. I don't know if
Yeah.
as much as you. And I also have my my page, right? My geothermal energy and geologic hydrogen page. And often I get inspired by your posts, and I share them too. We have a similar vision, definitely, and that's why we are connected now, and we are having this interview.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I
great.
think that's like what a lot of people are not doing. They actually don't reply or engage with other people posts, especially when they want to grow an audience at the beginning. They just post their own stuff, but they don't have like these 10 to 20 people who are doing like kind of the same thing. And with them, they should like engage like on a regular basis. And also like as a lesson learned, every post should be like addressed to one ideal reader, talking about one problem, one solution, and like one good call to action. And also what I recommend everyone is like to check the statistics about their audience, because as I said, oil and gas industry is now like the biggest part of my audience after I think renewable manufacturing or something like that. It's like the second biggest audience group. But maybe let's also talk about the downsides of LinkedIn. I think it's like very hard to connect sometimes with people, because like they all try to act like it's an authority. As I said, stay on their opinion, and also they scare away like newbies. And I think like very often on LinkedIn in the comments, like people don't ask the questions when they don't know something, so they are like very shy. But I think there's like a good solution that we can talk about in the next question.
Yeah, you are very analytical. I think you capture a lot of interesting things and statistics from LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And wow, yeah, I'm actually impressed with all that. Uh, so I guess for beginners and professionals in general, if they want to learn a lot about geologic hydrogen, they should follow you. So follow Clemens Behrend's LinkedIn profile, and he will always be keep you up to date with a very relevant post on information. And of
Yeah,
course,
not only follow, also in the connection request, send me a direct message like what you're looking for, like how I can help. Then I always find you like a match of like somebody working on the same challenge. Also in my profile, you find a link to a Skool community that we are currently want to set up. So what's a Skool community? It's a little bit different than like LinkedIn groups, because I think in LinkedIn groups, the only thing what happens is that people just post things in there and then it quickly disappears. So you not have really like a structure, like with a classroom, like courses, like discussions, like in a forum, which maybe goes a little bit more deep, and where also people provide like content that is more like sustainable and not like disappears that quickly as on LinkedIn. And I think also on LinkedIn, people chase a lot of like virality. So they just want that their post performs good and maybe not want to provide like the super insightful analytics what they would do on other platforms.
Yeah, definitely. LinkedIn is the tool for acquiring information, networking, and for those interested in geologic hydrogen, again, Clemens has a lot of good information. And of course, follow also my page, Sustainable Earth. Anyways, now let's talk about something else. Clemens, are there already investments in geologic hydrogen? You mentioned Coloma, for example, right? But I'm sure there are many more. I know a few. Can you please mention some of these already ongoing investments, and how can the public invest in geologic hydrogen?
Yeah, so maybe let's look at like the like this year, so 2024. I think until March or April, there were like 250 millions invested in geologic hydrogen. Out of that 250 million, I think like 200 or more goes to Coloma. And then we have like some other small companies like Gold Hydrogen, Hyterra, and like many, many more. But when we compare like this 250 million to like green hydrogen, like they are like alone in green hydrogen companies like Sunfire, which received like twice or X the amount. So it's quite low, but what we can see, at least from this year, with the 250 million that were invested so far, I think it's like 260. In 2023, it was like 80 million, and in 2022, it was like 60 million. So we already went with not even being like 5 months into the year, we already went 3x. I don't have like a forecast like how much will be invested like until the end of the year. I simply don't know. But I think like a 3x compared to the previous year is like a good increase. So that's quite solid. And regarding the question how like the public can invest in geologic hydrogen, I did like a lot of research on this one. So as I said, no financial advice, but where should people look at? So like the Australian Security Exchange, ACX, is like definitely a place where you should like look for junior listings. So this is what people can actively monitor. We have there like the two biggest players from Australia, or Australia and USA, Hyterra and Gold Hydrogen. Hyterra also does something with, I think, with helium. So not purely natural hydrogen, but it's just simply because where you find natural hydrogen, you often find helium too, which is quite good, to be honest, because like the margins on helium are quite high. So don't see that like as something negative. Then what people also very often overlook, and what I think, or what I hope at least in the future that I can help people with, is like that you can also in Australia quite easily directly invest in some companies through private investments. And this you can already do like even below 6 figures. You just need to find someone, make like an agreement, and then you are good to go. It's definitely way more riskier than like investing in companies which offered a stock, but that's also a possibility. Then what you can do if you don't want to have like direct exposure to natural hydrogen, you can get like indirect exposure to oil and gas companies. So for instance, FDA from France and Berry Energy are like some picks there, what you can consider. And also if you look more into investing into like the whole hydrogen industry, or like in especially mobility, but could profit quite a lot from natural hydrogen, you should have a look like at a company called Hexagon Purus from Norway. It's more like a wider hydrogen investment and not purely on geologic hydrogen, but this could also be something to consider. And then last but not least, we have like also mining companies, and they what you should look for is like always like the patents or intellectual property what they have. So like most likely we will find these company in Australia, because like the technology what they use for drilling for oil and gas kinda the technology what you can also apply for natural hydrogen. So if they own their important patents or IP, you can assume that you then also have like some exposure for geologic hydrogen. But these things, we all have it like summarized in the Skool community, and I will also share like a post within the next few days.
Great. Now, investor wants to put money where they think they will get profits, right? And we are seeing already results in Australia with gold hydrogen, so it's great. And about Coloma, I mean, Bill Gates is behind that. If Bill Gates is behind that, must be good. Do you have
Yeah,
any
and
comments?
also like my guess why he's behind it. So when you look at like where Coloma is like looking for natural hydrogen, I think it's like in the US, like in Kansas, like there's like a certain area where they're looking for, and there's also like a lot of like farmland. And Bill Gates is the biggest farmland owner in the US, and what's like an easy option to offtake natural hydrogen or like geologic hydrogen or how to utilize it. Of course, it's for fertilizer. So I think that's maybe the strategy what he's like trying to achieve with Coloma, but there's not like much public information out there. So it's just my guess.
Well, everything is in early stages of exploration, so probably this is the best time to invest, and we will see the results soon in a few months, maybe in the next year or two.
Yeah,
Uh,
we will definitely see, I think within the next few months, like the first commercial project. So we had like with H2 Site, we had them on an audio event from us, and they said that the technology what they are using will be used in the first commercial natural hydrogen project within the next months. We only have this one project in Mali, which sometimes is running, sometimes it's not. So I think like what's the downside? Like, okay, we have like one project at the moment, could be zero, but like it's quite easy that we go like 10x, 100x with the projects once we figure things out. So I really don't understand the negativity among many people also discussing on LinkedIn. Of course there are challenges, but like how low can we fall? Like, okay, like we can go back to zero projects, but from what? From one. And like how high can we go? Like 10x, 100x easily.
when now even governments are betting on geologic hydrogen. France, for example, Colombia, right? And France had this huge discovery, was some sort of accidental discovery last year in the Lorraine region. And
Yeah, it's like quite, yeah.
also Spain, the government of Aragon in Spain, so basically the government is supporting a very interesting project that will commence in September. You probably heard of that, Helios Aragon. And they will be drilling wells. The first well that they will drill will be an appraisal well because the discovery already existed back in the 60s. So we know there is geologic hydrogen there. And so, in my opinion, it seems very promising. And
Yeah, it's really the question if they are using the technology from H2 Site or if like H2 Site is working with another player. But since H2 Site, I think they are from Bilbao in Spain. At least I think that, but like of course they are from Spain, and Helios Aragon is too from Spain, so maybe they work together behind the scenes or not. I don't know.
yeah, I'm not sure. But regardless of that, I think the stakes are high. And again, in this particular case, we know there is geologic hydrogen. It was already discovered, right? So we should keep an eye on that, and it is coming soon. And if you want to be more specific, uh, where do you think there are the best opportunities for investors right now?
So I think like if I would have to pick from all of the opportunities that I mentioned, probably that the indirect exposures are the best. So like when there's like the risk is a little bit splitted. So when they also have like exposure like still in oil and gas. But I think for the future, who will push like geologic hydrogen the hardest. So when we think about possible off-takers, I think it's not like agriculture or like this industry or like governments. I think like big tech companies and asset managers who focus also like a lot on AI and Bitcoin, they at some point also want to use like clean energy. And I think like natural hydrogen could be the way to utilize it. So I think the best chance for natural hydrogen investments will be like once like big tech companies are going in this area. I don't know like if they will do it, but of course with all the AI hype and how much energy it uses, and we have like these goals of net zero until 2050, they always look for ways. And once you see like one of the, I don't know, like FANG companies or so going in that direction, then you should definitely keep your eyes open and look like how you can get exposure there. And it of course also depends like where you want to invest in the value chain. If you want to invest like in the technology or like in the IPs. But I think if you find a player who has like really important IPs or patents, that's also like an important way. And I think for the future, at some point, we should see an IPO of Koloma. And then the question as investor, what you should ask yourself, do you want to bet on the winner or do you want to bet on the whole industry? If you say you want to only invest in one of the companies, then probably wait until the IPO of Koloma. And if you say you want to bet on the whole industry, then like things are getting a little bit more complicated and you need to buy like a few different assets.
Now, because this is some, I will say, volatile, and it's always changing. I think the audience have to follow Clemens if you want to keep up to date with all this. And now, next question, Clemens. What market trends do you believe will incentivize the viability of geologic hydrogen as a sustainable energy source?
So I see like two scenarios how this could take off. I already described them a little bit. So like the first case, or what I believe the strongest, is like a big tech company and asset managers who focus on like AI and Bitcoin, that for the data centers that they want to go to net zero, and this might be possible with natural hydrogen and like the other resources that come with it. But I think the challenge with natural hydrogen is you always need to find it at the right place. So if, for instance, you don't have like an internet connection somewhere, you can also not build like a data center there. But with technologies like Starlink, I think we are getting there and we are overcoming like these challenges. Then like the second case, what I see, but I also described briefly, is like through agriculture. And like as an off-taker for fertilizer, since like the most fertilizer is produced in Russia, Belarus, and I think South America also has quite a lot with Brazil and Argentina. And with the latest crisis in the Ukraine, of course, we could see that this had like a huge impact on fertilizer. It depends a little bit how this will develop in the future, if it will cool off again, or if like the prices for fertilizer go up again, or if like people say they want to have really like sustainable, environment friendly produced fertilizer or ammonia, then I think the case 2 is also likely as a market trend.
What about as a replacement for hydrocarbons? How do you see geologic hydrogen replacing oil and gas? Or to which extent?
Yeah, that's like a really good question. So when we look at the project of Mali, it has like the energy of like 1/10 of like wind turbine. So it's really not much. So it depends like on the flow rates and how much you get out of it. I think in the beginning it will not be like a replacement. maybe in the wide future, but we need to collect as much data as possible, bring them together, and that we like can systemize how we look for it, because we should not just randomly drill everywhere and just hope to find a lot. But we now, this is phase where we are in, we need to get as much data as possible. And I think there are also people who are working with AI, or let's say it's simple word, with statistics, that we like systemize, like where do we look for natural hydrogen, how can we get it easily, and also at the places where we drill, that we can be sure that it's really like enough to commercialize, because this is like one of the biggest criticism about the whole topic. When you find it, it's at the wrong place, it's too less, and you cannot really off-take it or like transport it away to use it.
Well, now connected to this, to the previous question, could you predict how the geologic hydrogen industry will shape the future of energy and its role in the energy transition?
I think it will stay in a small niche for a while, but maybe when people think about the beginnings of the 2000s with all the fracking hype, how the sentiment was back then there. I think it was quite similar. I cannot tell from my own experience because I was too young at that time, but from what I heard, people were also like super critical, and then at some point it took off. So I think like making any predictions about the future is always quite hard, because it's always result open, and we don't know if we can like overcome all of the challenges. But what I can say, I think it will play a role, but it needs to work together with all the other energy sources, and it will also depend if people stick to the 2050 net zero goals, or if they say like, okay, the economy is not running well, let's just get rid of these goals. Then maybe investments or grants are also going down again, and this could like throw the industry a few years back again. But as long as there's like positive sentiment along investors, governments, policymakers, and so on, I think in the next, I don't know, 5 or 10 years, we should have at least, I don't know, like 5 to 10 projects. But maybe let's just talk at the end of the year and hope that we have the first 1, 2, or 3 commercial projects, because then I think the world or the industry looks completely different.
Often, people in the who are involved in this niche industry compare the stage where we are right now to the pioneer efforts in the 19th century to find oil, right? And I tend to believe it is similar. And also, I agree with you with your comparison with fracking, shale oil, right? At the beginning, it was seemed to be very expensive, and there was a lot of skepticism about this. But I think it was in 2008, 2009, by the intensive use of fracking and fracking shale, which is a rock with no permeability, that it was always ignored as a its potential. Made of the U.S. The best or the largest producer of oil, and actually because of so much production, the price of oil went down. Anyways, yeah. So I think we are witnessing something interesting here, and it will be similar, comparable to the recent shale oil fracking, and or what we experienced at the end of the 19th century with with oil.
Yeah, and the
Well,
thing with the oil and gas industry, they had like 120 years to figure things out, and now with geologic hydrogen, we are somehow expected to figure it out like within the next 10 to 20 years to achieve net zero. I think that's like a really good take, but also someone shared on the latest audio event that we had. So like the pressure is quite high, but I think like when there's like no pressure to develop further, then usually also the progress slows down. So I'm quite optimistic for geologic hydrogen.
And now that you mentioned oil and gas, there is a lot of opportunity for know-how transfer. The technologies that are used for prospecting and exploring oil and gas can be used or tuned for geologic hydrogen. And so the heavy lifting already, technological heavy lifting has already been done by oil and gas. So it should not be too difficult. And well, let's just expect success in these exploration efforts. And if you have some final words, Clemens?
Yeah, so my final words. First of all, thanks for having me. It was like really amazing questions. I hope it was like insightful for you as a listener. If you have like any questions, as I said, feel free to contact me on LinkedIn, Clemens Behrend. Just drop me a DM, like what you want to know, because like the questions from you are always super important, that I can like tailor the content and everything else what we are doing. Also, as I said in the beginning, I work at Delphi Data Labs. DelphiData.com is the website. We focus mainly on the green hydrogen market. We have like a digital twin or Power2X green hydrogen dashboard where we track like the global market, including like over 3,000 projects, different companies, technologies. We also have a look at the fundings and everything else happening in the market. So this is like a great solution for you to get like an overview for your strategy or your marketing efforts in a very short time. Also, we published a report about geologic hydrogen, which is like 60 to 80 pages long. You can get like a super good overview within like 1 and 2 hours of reading. So like also super valuable for you if you want to get started with the topic. Otherwise, if you are interested in like networking, consider to check out the featured section of my profile. There I have like a Skool community linked where we share like different kind of podcasts or like also the recordings of the audio events. And I also hope we will share like the episode of today there so that you can all watch the recording. And if there's like any comment section, please feel free to ask your questions, give feedback, or say if you agree or disagree with our cases that we made at the end about geologic hydrogen. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thank you very much, Clemens. Two things. One, for being my guest today, and the other one, very important, thank you very much for your tremendous efforts for propelling geologic hydrogen and sharing all your insights and valuable information. And
You're welcome.
And also, thanks to the audience for listening this podcast, this very interesting podcast. And if you like the video, please like and subscribe. Thank you.